Recording in progress.
We will call to order the meeting of the Ellettsville Plan Commission for July 11th, 2024. Ryan, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mike, roll call, please.
David Drake.
Here.
Dan Swafford.
Here.
Steve Hale. Pamela Samples.
Here.
Ryan Skaggs.
Here.
Pat Weslowski.
Here.
Zach Michael.
Here.
First item on our agenda is approval of the minutes for our May 2nd, 2024 meeting.
So approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Monthly conflict of interest statement. Does anybody have a monthly conflict of interest? Seeing none. We have no old business. New business is the public hearing on the Unified Development Ordinance.
I'll start. This is a public hearing for the Unified Development Ordinance, or UDO, which combines the town's zoning and subdivision control ordinances into one document. Sean Dade of Taylor Seifer Williams led the steering committee meetings and drafted the Unified Development Ordinance. The steering committee consists of 13 people who met from September 2023 to March 24 to discuss and put together the draft of the UDO. I need to thank Darla Brown, David Drake, Dan Swafford, and Mike Burns for serving on the steering committee, as well as Dan Rary in the audience. Should you have any questions, David, Dan, and Darla would be able to assist with explaining the rationale and discussions during the process, as well as Sean. On June 24th, the Planning Department delivered the UDO draft to the Plan Commission members, so you'd have ample opportunity to review it before the public hearing today. The draft was published on the town's website on June 24th. On June 27th, a public open house was held to give everyone the opportunity to ask questions and provide comments. At this time, I'll turn it over to Sean.
Good evening, everybody. Again, I'm Sean Dade with Taylor Seifer Williams Design Group, and I am going to talk a little bit about the UDO. So tonight, there are two items to consider. The first is the Ellettsville Unified Development Ordinance, or UDO, and the second is the update to the Ellettsville zoning map. So first, we'll talk about the UDO. So what exactly is a UDO? It's simply put, it's your zoning ordinance and your subdivision control ordinance in one document. That's it. And how is this different from your current ordinances? So each district will have an at-a-glance summary. The land uses are a little more contemporary, and we also make sure that state law and federal law and any case law has been up to date. The big thing with this update is that we really wanted to make sure that the input and guidance from the comprehensive plan that was just updated is incorporated into the zoning ordinance. We also clarify procedures and make them a little bit more user-friendly, as well as the whole book, and want to make sure that information is easy to find and done quickly. You'll notice on the digital copy that anytime that you see a reference hyperlink, it is a direct link to the section that is referenced. So what was the process? As Denise said, we met monthly from September to March. And then for the following months after that, we were working on finalizing the draft that you have before you today. We had 7 monthly meetings, and again, thank you to all steering committee members, Mr. Drake, Councilperson Swafford, Darla, Denise, Mr. Rary, on really putting plenty of, dedicating a whole lot of work and effort into making this document. Other members were, there were some other local developers on the board, as well as citizens. Again, we really, the input from the comprehensive plan guided this process. We also held that public workshop, as Denise had mentioned. So quickly, there are 9 chapters in this UDO. Chapter 1 deals with administration and general provisions. 2 is your zoning districts. 3 are standards for specific uses. 4 are your site development and structure standards. 5 is subdivision types. 6 is your subdivision design standards. Chapters 5 and 6 are your subdivision control chapters. Chapter 7 is our procedures. Chapter 8 talks about our non-conforming lot structures and uses. And then Chapter 9 is definitions. I'll get into a little bit of detail on each chapter briefly. So Chapter 1 is our introductory provisions and administration. It includes statutory authority language. It established provisions for the administration of the UDO, for the administrator, the Advisory Plan Commission, and the Board of Zoning Appeals. And it provides transition policies, pending applications, plats, and issued permits. And how does this function and transition from the old document into the new? Chapter 2 is our zoning districts. So it establishes our districts. It generally describes the official zoning map. It sets policy for administrative decisions for land uses not listed in the UDO. Again, things come up that in 5 years will be a use that we never thought of today. And so it gives staff the guidance on how to address those new use types. And it also includes criteria for how to classify them. So there's a very step-by-step classification criteria. How does this change the current zone districts? And the answer to that is it really doesn't a whole lot. So at the beginning of this process, we conducted a zoning analysis with the GIS maps. And we kind of combined a couple districts, removed 3 municipal districts that weren't being used. And that's really about it. So Ag 1 and Ag 2, we have now combined into one Ag district. We've created a new downtown district, and this was really pulled from the guidance from the comprehensive plan. And so that district is really centered around Sale Street. And then we combine Commercial 2 and Commercial 3 into one Commercial 2 district. So it's our general commercial district now. They were functioning very similarly, and it kind of would reduce a little bit of confusion to not have as many general commercial districts. Outside of that, we still have 3 residential districts and 2 industrial districts, and then of course our plan unit development. Chapter 3 deals with standards for specific uses. And this chapter really outlines additional standards that go above and beyond the district standards in the Chapter 2 zoning districts. So these list of uses on the screen not only have to meet the district development standards from Chapter 2, they also have to meet the standards in Chapter 3. Some of these will be permitted by right. Some will also require special exception approval. And I will go over a couple of them real quick and kind of outline a little bit on some of these tables. So this is a table that shows some of the, the accessory dwelling unit standards. These are your granny flats, your mother-in-law suites. These are standards that we have put together with our steering committee that have been vetted to outline how, if someone wants to develop or build an ADU on their property for their aging mother or kids just graduating college, what that looks like and how they can go about doing it. So it includes minimum square footage areas for the structure and maximum square footage structures. And we also talk about what's not allowed. So you can't, have an RV or a travel trailer or a back of a box truck doesn't really count. It's got to be made for human habitation. The next is home-based business. And if you go back on that screen, you see home-based businesses and home occupations. There's slight differences between the two. Home occupations are really, I work from home in my office, and that's it. Home-based businesses are a little bit more intensive, and therefore they will generally require special exception approval in addition to meeting all of the standards that I mentioned earlier. And this has things like you can have a few employees come to your site. Maybe a few clients. A really good example of this is a salon. Someone wants to open up a one-chair barber salon in their house. So this provides an option for them to use their property like that. The big important factor of this is it has to be accessory to the residential use. We don't want it to become a commercial entity because it is in a residential district. So we really want it to function as a house, but has this on the side as well. And then a third instance is short-term rentals. And I know that these are a new big rage. There is some slight distinctions in Indiana code. And if it's an owner-occupied house and you only rent it out on the weekends, under Indiana code, you can't regulate that. These are really for, I buy my neighbor's house and want to rent it out every weekend to whatever, for IU football games or what have you. And so that's what these guidelines really set out to do. These will be special exceptions, I believe, in almost every instance. And the big issue with this is, a big thing with this is that it will require an annual registration permit. And that will be done through staff. And that's, to make sure that we can do an inspection if it's needed, and to ensure that the structure and unit, it meets all building codes and it's safe and habitable. Chapter 4 deals with site development standards. This is what your property looks like as you develop it. So we talk about things like architectural standards, entrances and drives, landscaping and buffer, parking and loading, things like that. We also have property maintenance and blight standards in here for the community. One item that I'd like to bring to your attention, it's a very small typo on this graphic. It says that on C2, that adjacent, when you have a C2 to C2 zoning districts, this dealing with landscaping and buffer yards, that on the graphic, it says that there are no plantings or additional buffer yard required, and that's incorrect. The table in the book, and that is on page, it's in section 4.5. It's on page 90 of 209. There are some canopy trees and evergreen trees, some landscaping, and a little bit of an additional setback required. And this was brought out by wanting a little bit of landscaping requirements on the property to kind of help with aesthetic and beautification and a little bit of buffering. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. I noticed that this morning, and I didn't want to change it without bringing it to your attention first. Parking and loading standards are another item on here. And so this sets out, the minimum standards for commercial uses, for industrial uses, and things like that. So we really wanted to make sure you all had parking standards currently, but we wanted to make sure that they were more reflective of where we are today and how uses and sites are utilized. Another example is sign standards. This is one of the graphics from our definitions, and this kind of describes graphically what a pole sign is, what a monument sign is, what a projecting sign or a canopy sign is. And we find that this is usually better than someone having to read a definition. The visual representation of that just makes it a little bit easier. One thing we really like to say is if my mom can understand and use the UDO, then we've done it correctly. This is not just for the developers to use. This document is intended to be easy to use for someone who may look at it one time, and that's it. And so we really wanted to make sure that it's usable for them as well. Chapter 5 talks about subdivision types. Again, this is your first chapter of subdivision control. So this outlines things like exempt subdivisions, minor residential subdivisions, major residential subdivisions, and commercial and industrial subdivisions. Chapter 6 is the design standards for your subdivision. This is the second chapter of the subdivision control. So it establishes your blocks and lots, requirements for sidewalks and trails. It establishes some open space standards. They're not mandatory, if I remember. It's just if you choose to do it, we have these standards. Let me look that up now that I'm saying that out loud. I apologize. They're not required for major residential subdivisions, and there is a 10% minimum open space requirement for plats for new commercial and industrial plats, excluding subdivisions in the D1 district. So I misspoke, I apologize. So a 10% requirement for a new commercial plat or industrial plat. They also have standards for subdivision entrances, and we have minimum road design requirements. We worked with KIP pretty extensively on those subdivision road design requirements. Chapter 7 is procedures. So we outline all the procedures for all the applications that staff will receive, including development plans, major subdivisions, zone changes, and special exceptions and variances. These are intended to be user-friendly, as well as it comes with accompanying text. And we also establish standards for document and drawing requirements, how complaints and violations are handled, and required sureties for development, so that's your maintenance and your performance sureties. Chapter 8 is our non-conforming chapter, so it defines what a legal non-conforming and an illegal non-conforming structure is, or use, or lot of record. It also establishes standards for non-conforming uses of land and uses of land and structures in combination. And then chapter 9 is our definitions chapter. And that really defines our uses and terms that you will find in the UDO. It includes graphics. It also provides guidance on what shall means, or may, or must. And it also establishes standards for how to define terms that aren't included in this document. Again, things change, and we don't want this to really be static. We want it to be able to be usable by staff and give them guidance when those instances do occur. The second item tonight is our zoning map. Again, going back to the earlier conversion chart, not a lot has changed, and that goes also with the zoning map. I think there were a few small changes on the northwest part of the town, really to reflect what is going on. The bulk of the changes along Indiana 46 in the downtown area were the ones that were affected by revisions. And my following slide will show that in greater detail. This is zoning the properties along Sale Street into that new D1 zone district. And then some of the properties along 46 were zoned to be very large, heavy commercial. So things like Walmart, if they wanted to locate there, could locate there. So we really right-sized that to bring that more into a neighborhood scale commercial function. And so as you can see on here, the pink colored parcels were originally zoned commercial 2, I believe. Maybe a couple were commercial 3. So we brought that back down to a commercial 1. That honestly, it doesn't restrict what you can and can't do. It's just, it restricts the size because we really want it to be that neighborhood commercial feel. The purple parcels are the ones that were changed to the D1 zone district for the downtown district. So tonight, we will host a public comment period, and we're requesting 2 favorable recommendations, one for the Unified Development Ordinance, and 2, the zoning map to go to town council. And we have scheduled for town council tentatively for adoption on July 22nd. And with that, I am free to answer any questions that you all may have.
All right, go ahead. I was just going to say, are there any questions?
It's not really well, I guess it could be a question. For the adult stuff, what kind of adult stuff are you talking about?
So
like
that's
selling books or
It's
sexual
what you
stuff?
think it
or?
is. So unfortunately, we have to include it in here. If you don't include it, it can cause issues down the road. And so we made it fairly restrictive and quite difficult to obtain. We still, it is able to be a use in the town. But, and I'll flip to that page and we can kind of go over those. It will be a special exception approval.
Okay.
So it will have to go before the Board of Zoning Appeals. It will also, let me get to that page, I apologize. I don't have it bookmarked yet.
Talking about a strip club.
We're talking about all host of things of that manner, correct. So
I read that second.
So in addition to that, anyone that is proposing to have an adult business, after it receives special exception or approval, it will also require development plan approval, which will come before this board. In addition to all standards in Chapter 2 that it would have to meet for that subject zoning district, we outline a host of standards that are also required in addition. So things like location requirements in relation to schools, churches, parks, residential uses, hotels, daycare facilities, things like that, anywhere that sells alcohol. We really want to make sure that we give it a potential to have a home and not restrict it, but we also want to make sure that the health, safety, and welfare of the community is protected when we do so.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not pleased with it, but I understand that you
Yeah,
say that we have to.
It's one of those things that, we have to allow it the potential to find a home and have the opportunity to locate. But again, in creating these standards, we really kept in mind the health, safety, and welfare of the community.
If they jump through all the hoops, then by right, they can do it?
No, sir. There's nothing by right about it. They still have to they have to get special exception approval from the Board of Zoning Appeals and development plan approval from this board.
Thank you.
So multiple public hearings will have to be met in addition to a list of standards.
No, it'd be hard to be a minimum of 1,300 feet away from all 5 of these.
That's about a quarter mile.
Yeah, it would be difficult to find a spot in town where you could do that.
Okay.
There's probably like one very specific point somewhere that, it's pretty restricted. And then we'd still have to approve
Twice.
2
public hearings.
Okay. All
But
right, thank you.
You have to allow for it. You're required to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any more questions? Any more questions? Okay, seeing none, we will open the floor for public comment from our vast and wide audience of practically no one. Would anyone from the public like to comment? We allow 3 minutes per speaker. Okay, I don't see any, so there's no need for rebuttal by the petitioner or rebuttal by the public. So now the Plan Commission can discuss it and take a vote. I would like to thank Sean and everyone for all the work that they did on this. This is a great document here, and there's no way we could have sat down and done this ourselves. And they did a great job with it. Took a lot of input from people. We gave the public plenty of opportunity for input, but as usual, we didn't see a lot of that input other than the group that was involved in the steering committee. So they had the opportunity if they wanted to. Does anyone else from the Plan Commission want to comment, or are we ready for a vote, or?
I just want to remind you, for a recommendation town council, it would be favorable, non-favorable, or no recommendation, but staff's requesting a favorable recommendation to town council.
And I just want to make one quick note. Again, as I mentioned earlier, there's that one typo on the graphic for the landscaping and buffer standards. And I want if you make your recommendation to include that amendment for the record, so when we take it before town council, that there's a record of that revision.
Okay, well, I will start this off by making a motion that we forward the Unified Development Ordinance with the stated amendment in the landscaping section to the town council with a favorable recommendation.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
David Drake.
Yes.
Dan Swafford.
Yes.
Steve Hale. Pamela Samples.
Yes.
Brian Skaggs.
Yes.
Pat Wazalowski.
Yes.
Zach Michael.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
So the next motion is to send the zoning map update to the town council with a favorable recommendation.
Yes. Staff makes the same request.
Okay, that was a motion.
Oh,
I'll second that one, too.
Roll call, please.
David Drake,
Yes.
Dan Swafford,
Yes.
Pamela Samples,
yes.
Brian Skaggs,
Yes.
Pat Wetzelowski,
Yes.
Zach Michael.
Yes.
Both motions carry.
And you'll be at the council too when this gets presented again, or,
Yes, sir, I will.
okay, are you going to give the same?
Yeah, it'll be slightly different, just to make sure that I mention the amendment to that graphic.
All right.
But it'll generally be the same presentation.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Good job.
Thank you all very much.
Next on our agenda is the Planning Department update.
Next meeting is August 8th. I will have new business for you.
At what?
New business.
Thought you said no business.
What's all the sticks in the ground for?
Where at?
Over there by the new park, by the fire station down through there, there's a bunch of sticks with white flags on them in the ground. Anybody know what that's for?
New park.
Yeah, by the old fire station.
Oh, the old fire
Trail,
Yeah.
she's talking about the trail.
Yeah, it's the trail. We're having it staked ahead of our working on it,
Oh,
so we
because I've been
don't.
asked, so I thought I'd ask.
Yeah, so we don't lose time with our surveyor and have to wait on it to be staked.
And you know, I got one other question. It said in, I think it said in here, or in one of them, that we don't have an engineer for the town. Is that correct?
No.
Don't we have him part-time?
The town's contracted with Rick Copic,
Yeah.
formerly with Bynum Fanio and Associates. And believe you me, we're using him, so.
Oh, good.
Yeah, he's also our trail inspector, to make sure we're doing slopes right, turning where we should, and things like that. And so, and plus for the plan commission, he reviews plans, he's part of our tech review, so we use him quite a bit.
I thought we did. Well, I read someplace that said we didn't have one, and that's what,
We don't have one on staff.
on staff, yeah. Okay,
We just renewed his contract also.
okay. Thank you.
Sure.
While we're on these kinds of topics, I see that the Jimmy John's is going up. It's in progress of going up, but what is being built at the entrance to Charlestown Manor?
doctor.
Yeah, the autonomous.
Oh, it's an eye doctor?
Yeah, and it's going to be also a medical eye clinic. He's going to have some other doctors and eye doctors in there with him.
He said something about a bracer going in there too, that day that he was here.
I couldn't remember what.
Second floor will be some sort of medical office, like a chiropractor, or dentist, or orthodontist, or something.
I must have forgotten what was going in there. But it looked like a house is why I wondered. I thought that was kind of an odd place for a house. But,
Yeah.
okay, the next item on our agenda is privilege of the floor. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to bring up something that wasn't on our agenda? Seeing none, next item is Plan Commission comments.
I just had a question. We're talking about building and stuff. How is the new home constructions going right now? Is there a lot going on, or is it slowed down?
No, there's a lot going on. Yeah, it's like in the last week, 2 weeks, we've just become tremendously busy.
Yeah, up there on Deer Run, by me. There's like 6 houses for sale right in a row. Is there something going on up there I don't know about? Yeah, they're like right there, all of them.
New
It's like they all decide houses, not new ones, no. Just like all of a sudden, there's like 6 people right there decide to put their house up for sale.
I haven't heard anything,
What's going into the village inn?
That's a good question. What's going on at the old village and purchase?
Something.
Is it a bed and breakfast, I heard?
Yeah, it's gonna be a bed and breakfast
Are they gonna tear
restaurant.
down all the buildings down to the funeral home, you know?
I think one building will be sold, the farthest building will be sold to Chandler, I think. That's the current discussions, but I don't know what the intent is. It's probably going to be a year or two before we see them getting ready.
Isn't that
for
the
that.
flood zone?
Floodway,
The floodway, I mean?
yeah.
Can they tear that down and rebuild something there?
It all depends on, they can, but then it's more difficult to build back in the floodways, I've been told. So it just depends on how much work and what shape everything's in that they find. The restaurant area, I hear, is horrible, so they'll have to do
I
something.
redid that one last time after the fire, and yeah, it was bad.
Is it true that you only can spend 30% of what you bought the business for to update it in a floodplain?
No, so we'll issue, the town has its own construction and a floodplain permit, and so does DNR. So if they want to stay 50% or under, and Sean may have to help me with this, 50% or under of the value of the building only, not the land or anything, then they'll have to only fill out our permit and get our permit, but they still have to provide a lot of information and what they're going to do and everything. And then if it's 50% and over, they have to go to the DNR for approval, and we can't, the town can't do anything till DNR makes their determination.
Thank you.
I didn't know that. Pickleball court wasn't permanent. And John and I went down there and looked for it, and I'm like, I don't see no pickleball court unless I don't know what they look like, and
It's in the shelter house? Yeah, and
but
under
it was
shelter.
gone because they had the Wednesday thing.
Oh, food trucks.
Yeah. And I was looking for it, and I'm like, I don't see no court. I don't know what they look like, but,
All it is lines.
Yeah.
oh, well, I didn't know it was removable.
You'll have to get you some paddles and go play.
I'd like to. I've got somebody can play with me because he can't.
But I do want to remind everybody, Food Truck Wednesdays is 4:30 to 8:30 at Marcy Jane Lewis Park through the end of September.
Okay, any more plan commission comments? Seeing none, we're adjourned.